Good evening, America. Welcome to Water Break with Waterboy. Our nation's health and all the money that we spend on exercise, it's crazy. And yet, in some sense, we're more unhealthy than ever. Well, I have my wife coming on the show today, actually, to talk about all this. It should be a fun show for you today. Stand by also, as our app date is still coming. We actually had some problems with Google and Subsplash and some previous entanglements of technology. And our club membership still needs you. But as we wait for you, I hope you enjoy the show. So grab your best scotch, Dr. Pepper, buckle up. First, Olive Tree, biblical Bible software, biblical Bible software. Discover why more than 1 million people, including me, use the free Olive Tree Bible app as their go-to reading for studying and listening to God's Word. Download one of the many free Bibles and start taking notes, highlighting verses and bookmarking for favorite passages, and actually syncs from device to device. Read at your own pace or choose from a large selection of reading plans, including the Bible Reading Challenge, which is what our Christ Church kind of put together. When you're ready, go to dig deeper into your studies. Olive Tree is right there with a large selection of study Bibles, commentaries, and helpful study resources available for purchase. An extensive bookstore allows you to build your digital library one book at a time. Olive Tree's sync technology, like I already mentioned, lets you pick up wherever you left off on your tablet, PC, phone, and get right to studying on another supported device. Now, here's the cool part. You can start with the Olive Tree Essentials bundle for free. So actually get some purchase books for free. Go to olivetree.com/FLF. That is olivetree.com/FLF and download it today. And if this show airs, I think it should air before. I'm actually going to be traveling to Georgia on Friday of this week, and I'll be preaching in Fort Worth, at Weatherford, Texas on Sunday this week at Church of the Triumphant King. And you can just Google their website and Weatherford, Texas, and find me and hope to see you there. Now, cannonball or belly flop here, okay? The U.S. accounts for almost 1/3 of the global exercising market. I mean, it's pretty incredible. The U.S. market will grow by, and this is kind of the health, fitness, industry market. I wish I had a graph I could throw up on the screen, but I can't do it today. But the U.S. market will grow by about 5.2% annually over the next 5 years, which is the fastest growing. It's faster. That's faster than GDP. America's GDP, 3.5% is going to be, if we're lucky to get to 3.5%, probably could even be 2%. But the health industry, the fitness industry, is going to be growing by 5.2% in the next 5 years. Is really insane. The U.S. will account for about 25% of the global market growth during this period. According to Optimed's website, the United States features one of the lowest life expectancies of approximately 79 years. So that's the average, or our average age of death here in the United States. And that kind of puts America at 26% and 26th in ranking of life expectancy among other what they call OECD countries. Japan actually leads all the other countries with an average life expectancy of 84 years. According to research, 25 countries have an average life expectancy of at least 80 years. And my teleprompter is jumping ahead of me. And 18 of the said countries have life expectancies that exceed the typical life expectancy by at least 3 years. So 79 years, and 18 of those countries are about 82 years. And this is, they exclude, of course, abortion from these stats, of course, and they would all change significantly. Now, the reason why I want to talk about the health industry is because, fitness, health, food, I'm kind of putting it all under a big umbrella, big label. We spend more money on the health industry than we've ever had before, on fitness, on better food, or in some cases, not better food, but we have all these health products. We have this whole industry, and it's very, I want to say kind of the baseline problem with the health industry is that it is full of idolatry. It's a very me-oriented industry. It's a very me-oriented, you're spending all this money on yourself to help you look better, to make you feel better, and so forth. And so the industry is just saturated with idolatry. And so Let me catch up here with where I'm at. We supposedly Americans spend, but in all this, so we have health, we have fitness, we have food, and then we also spend. This is a crazy stat to me, but as I was researching this, Americans also spend about an average of about 4.5 hours per day on leisure activities. And they're probably referring to, my guess is actually referring to some sort of phone screen time, probably for a lot of those hours. So as I said, my thesis on the problem is that America has turned body image into an idol. And those idols, they rot, and they rot the worshiper. God gives you over to your lust. They destroy you. Psalm 115 says you become what you worship. And so my operating view on all this is that it's idolatrous. And that's why anything that we think we're even trying to do good ends up not really helping us. It exacerbates the problems, makes problems worse, so forth. You want some water? Bree, you don't want, that's Noxus.
Oh.
Bree, we get a...
I thought it was yours.
No. Annie, some water.
Thanks, Bree. Gotta hydrate.
And so my operating text, my first place to start on this is because, we're called to take care of our body. We're called to be good stewards of what God has given us. But I always want to start here with the fishing, talking about the subject, this health industry, this fitness industry. I want to start with kind of where the Bible puts the emphasis. And this is from 1 Timothy verse 4. And I actually want to read kind of, I think it's verses 1 through 9, or this is more context to where I want to get to. Now, the Spirit expressly says that in latter times, some will depart from the faith, giving heeds to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from foods which God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. For every creature of God is good, and nothing is to be refused if it is received with thanksgiving, for it is sanctified by the word of God and prayer. If you instruct the brethren in these things, you will be a good minister of Jesus Christ, nourished in the words of faith and of the good doctrine which you have carefully followed. But reject profane and old wives' fables, and exercise yourself toward godliness. Now listen to this, for bodily exercise profits little, but godliness is profitable for all things, having promise of the life that now is, and of which is to come. This is a faithful saying and worthy of all acceptance. So Paul actually kind of lumps in talking about food, talking about bodily exercise, talking about idolatry, and all these things. And he part of his conclusion is, godly exercise profits much more than bodily exercise. Now, of course, he's not saying don't take care of your body, but and I kind of joke with my wife that, when we start talking about the dieting world and the fitness world and all this stuff, there's diet a diet on every corner of the street. There's a diets all over the place, and there's a diet for everything. A diet for no bread, a diet for no meat, a diet for all these things. And I kind of joke with my wife that any diet that conflicts with the Lord's Supper, which is wine and bread, I already have kind of a problem with from the beginning, or I'm suspect from the beginning. But of course, we live in a fallen world, and sin complicates these things. So I'm actually excited to have my wife on with me today on the show. Not only is she a wonderful wife and friend, but she has a serious background and knowledge on this topic. And so, actually, baby, I figured we'd just take a minute just to kind of talk about your background, your education, kind of how you, grew into, you've done a lot of, not only did you go to University of Idaho in sports science, but you kind of, did a lot of growing and studying, not growing, that sells, this goes back to the self-help stuff. You did a lot of, research on your own.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic really kind of kicked a lot of the research off for you in 2020. But why don't you talk about, what you major in and kind of some of your health background?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, it's like 15-ish years ago that I graduated from U of I.
2007. Yeah, someone else will do the math for us. It's about 16 years.
It's a long time ago. Yeah.
16 years.
Yeah. I went to University of Idaho, got a degree in sports science. And honestly, I mean, I still use it, and that's something, so I'm glad that because
I don't use my university.
I know. I feel like I got off a little better than a lot of people in other departments there, but I took some good classes, some of the upper level stuff I still use. Usually what I say to people is that a lot of my classes that were more on the exercise front, so like biomechanics of exercise, exercise physiology, a lot of those things that I learned still seem, as far as I can tell, to be true.
Yeah, right.
But it's what I've had to unlearn since then is some things with regards to exercise, but I would say 100% of what I was taught, nutritionally speaking, I've had to unlearn.
Really?
And basically, yeah. And I mean, at this point, you know, in my career. So, anyways, I got out of there. I did a lot of group fitness. I became a personal trainer. I was a head trainer at a gym here locally until just a couple years ago. And of course, you're required to do continuing education if you're a personal trainer, obviously, just to keep your certification. So you do a lot of that. And then I've had to just dig and research a lot of my own. As time has gone on, I've just sort of realized that a lot of what I was taught, and again, specifically on the nutritional side of things, like think food guide pyramid, things like that, just weren't true. It wasn't bearing out in the science I was looking at as time went on, and it wasn't anecdotally working for me, and it wasn't working for any of my clients. You know, when you try to give the advice that you've been taught and everybody just gets fatter and more diabetic, it's kind of like, well, you know, I've had to unlearn. And at this point, I just tell people, you know, with regards to what the government tells you, it's just like every day is opposite day.
Well, really, what the government tells you.
Just, I mean, especially with regards to food, it's sad, but it's true.
Because it really is like a health industrial complex.
Big time.
So when 2020 happened, I started using the terminology medical industrial complex. Of course, people use that before me. I didn't make it up. Yeah, but that really helped me kind of better articulate, oh, there's a big problem over here because, you know, all our doctors, Christian or not, they're going to the public school, the public, you know, college medical programs.
Right.
They're reading the CDC studies. They're reading all the government studies. And on the health kind of food side of things, you also have this big business farming industrial complex.
Big food.
Where they're producing studies and saying, hey, our Kellogg's box of cereal is actually healthy for you. What was you told me when we were talking about this a couple weeks ago that Kellogg had a whole marketing campaign that's saying something like, if you eat our box of cereal for 2 weeks, eat a bowl of cereal.
Special K. I don't know if some of you ladies remember that.
Yeah. What'd they say?
Well, it was like a diet plan.
It's a marketing plan.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant. And like we all were like, yeah. So if you eat like 3 bowls of Special K cereal for 3 weeks, you know, you'll lose
3 bowls a day for 3 weeks or something like that. Or a bowl of cereal every day for 2 weeks, you'll lose.
I'm dating myself because if you're old enough to remember that, I guarantee you tried it because you're like, well, I mean, cereal's heart healthy. It has a little red heart on it, you know,
and it tastes good. It's got milk.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I guess shame on us for falling for this stuff, but I mean, a big cereal, General Mills, Post, I mean, they've got money to make, you know, and they're all, unfortunately, they're all in bed with each other.
And so back me up here a little bit. Talk to me about the food program, the food pyramid, because, you know, we all grew up believing the food pyramid. Are you getting your grains? Are you getting, you know, how did that come about? And what's the problem with the pyramid?
Oh man, I mean, there's a long answer and then there's a really long answer. I'll keep it on the short side. I mean, a lot of it, I think.
I want to just spend my time with you.
I think a lot of with regards to the food guide pyramid, it kind of dates back to like I want to say the 50s or the 60s. Okay. That's during the time of a really famous researcher who's named Ansel Keys. So if you're in the health space, you probably hear his name come up a lot because he's really. I mean, a lot of things happened all at the same time. One big thing that happened was I think it was President Eisenhower actually had a heart attack in office, and that really scared people because really, until like turn of that century, heart disease wasn't even barely a thing. Neither really was obesity, actually.
Or did we know it wasn't a thing? We didn't know it was a thing or not. We discovered.
No, I mean, like it just was way less prevalent. I mean, it was just way less prevalent, and I think we can actually know that. And like I said, same with obesity. It really is a very newer problem in America. Anyways, I think the president having a heart attack really brought a lot of attention to like, oh my gosh, what causes this? Because that was a question. It's like, what's causing it? Because it was heart attacks, cardiovascular disease was going up quite a bit quickly around then. And so Ansel Keys kind of for better or for worse, he's kind of has been well known historically to be the guy who really the question was, okay, either it's saturated fat that's causing heart disease, right? And along with that, elevated LDL, which that's obviously we know which side won here because we all have been taught that even to today. Like you want to keep your LDL down and it's saturated fat that's going to give you a heart attack. Or the other thing was, what is it sugar? And one way or another, I think for reasons way more political than scientific, his opinion ended up winning out. And it's funny because I've heard some reports that he was like kind of a bully, like just one of those people that was like a big guy in the room, super alpha, like super, and not really in a nice way, like kind of a conversational bully. But one way or another, he won. Even though, as far as I've read, he actually did a study a little bit later in his life, actually comparing, actually in this case, it wasn't so much sugar, but it was saturated fat versus seed oils, which is what we all eat now, thinking that the saturated fat was going to come along with a lot more cardiovascular disease, and it actually didn't, but he didn't sign the results, and they buried that study.
Oh, really?
Guys, the more you dig, the sadder you get. Really, the sadder you get. But anyways, it was right around then, and it wasn't, a couple, years go by, and then the government came out with, among other things, that food guide pyramid with, probably sponsored by a lot of big cereal, all saying that you need to, what's at the base of that pyramid, processed grains. So, eat your cereal. We're not talking like eating sweet potatoes here. They're like, eat cereal, eat granola bars, eat, highly processed stuff that a lot of other ingredients that we know
are feeding into it,
are not good for you, are in. And everybody bought it. And, keep your fat low. And really the fats from that point on that have insidiously replaced saturated fat in people's diets is these PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Like engineered fats or something?
It's just your industrial seed oils. So oils that are made very cheaply from seed, so your canola, your cottonseed. Your
now, how do you, because you know me and my diets,
I sure
and my
do.
health habits.
He's a healthy guy.
But thank you, baby. She's not telling the truth.
He mostly eats what I feed him. I'll give him that.
Mostly, that's true.
He doesn't complain.
And this is a salad full of meat. Now we just kind of read through 1 Timothy where said all food is good. What sanctifies the food is giving thanks to the Lord.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the joke I've had between us about the Lord's Supper, any diet that conflicts with wine and bread is suspect of that diet.
Yeah.
But at the, so how do you kind of balance, like, not being persnickety and not being this, diet fad crazy lady, and also, really striving to enjoy God's food and kind of the fullness thereof?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. And I mean, I think about it all the time, as Christian. I've been in this industry of health and fitness for a long time now, and it's a terrible industry. I mean, it really is. It's not very Christian.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say. I mean, it's definitely an uphill battle, and there's a lot of issues with it for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I guess in my mind, there's a handful of different things going on, or a lot of different things kind of being true at the same time. I mean, one thing I think that we need to consider is, I think. All things are lawful, all food is lawful, but I think you can still make the argument that some is going to be better for your health objectively than others. And I think we can all agree with that. I mean, like, broccoli versus a Snickers bar, which one should you eat more of? I mean, like, I think
Snickers.
But I mean, so it just in terms of thinking, like, what should the majority of your diet be? And of course, even that word majority, that's a relative term. And I think some of it is just kind of comes down to the person and the family and what seems to be working for you and, all that. And that's fine. I think also you have to look at what in America right now, you have to kind of look at what we've done to our food, and you really can't have this conversation without that, because again, if you could probably make a really good argument that if most Americans just moved away from heavily processed, modified food and moved just towards more real food, the way it just comes out of the ground or out of the animal or whatever, most of our health issues would probably go away. So, some of it is that. And then the last thing I like to talk to people about, because again, back to your point, like we're supposed to, we don't want to be persnickety. We don't want to become this person who can only eat 3 things. I mean, I don't really think that's that's not fun. There's no joy in that. And I don't really think that's what God's calling us to. But I think one thing that you need to take into account is that here's one statistic. And actually, I don't even know if this is accurate. I was just listening to Ben Bickman, who is an expert on insulin resistance. And I think he said upwards of 90% now, or close to 90% of Americans right now are insulin resistant. And that's just basically fancy talk for pre-diabetic.
90%.
Like a really high number.
Now, how do I believe those stats? Because like the BMI, body mass index, it's like there's a number of stats out there that can be used, manipulated, or kind of like, I don't know.
Well, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, part of it is you just need to do the more if you understood what insulin, that it's simply just a blood draw and you're literally just measuring fasted insulin in the serum. It's a really basic draw. It's kind of hard to mess up unless you go into it not fasted when you're supposed to be fasted. That's really the only way to mess it up. BMI, there's nothing wrong with that metric. I mean, it's just, you're just dealing with height and body weight.
But then America says you're 40%.
Right. They're
40% of Americans are fat.
They're drawing
because
a
BMI.
Right. And of course, it's pretty easy to debunk that, though, because it's not taking into account muscle mass versus fat mass. I mean, that's pretty easy.
Because I got a lot of muscle.
Well, I mean, that's exactly who I was thinking of. I was like, your BMI, they would say.
It's all upside down. It's whack.
It's muscle. Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to debunk. You're right to be skeptical, but I actually think, at least my opinion is that the fasted insulin is one of the most underrated and like accurate measures of somebody's metabolic health. And the interesting thing about it is that most doctors' offices do not, like if you say, hey, I want a basic metabolic panel, like a lot of people go in and get that done yearly, they'll look at your fasted glucose, maybe your A1C, but they don't ever, I mean, as far as I've ever seen, and the people that I've worked with and talked to, you have to specifically ask for it. And fasted insulin will be flagged high, will go high years before your glucose or your A1C. And usually what happens is nobody looks at insulin. It's slowly climbing like a classic American, I would say mostly due to our diets and that like what we just talked about, what's in our food. And then by the time your A1C is too high or whatever, it's like, well, you have diabetes now. Here's metformin and
then they give you medication or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like not a very preventative way to go. So I really have I'm very baffled why we don't talk about it more. We're not looking at fasted insulin more. But anyways, all that to say, according to Ben Bigman, who he's definitely an expert that I trust.
Research guy.
Yeah. And I mean, you come up with your people.
He's not Fauci. No,
I trust him. Yeah. I think he's legit. And I think he does good research. And anyways, he's like, it's like, almost 90%. So all that to say, I think if you were metabolically damaged and really, really unhealthy, then you might need to not feast on the Doritos and the, whatever food, your ice cream, your whatever, eat bread every night. Your body just might not be in a place where it can handle that if you want to feel good and you want to heal, right? And I think, though, once you get yourself there, or maybe you are healthy and you never got there, you can afford to feast more, and I think that's fine. So I think some of it is just kind of like, it's got to be a little more nuanced than everyone should just be able to eat whatever they want. I mean, obviously they can because it's America, but if you want to feel good, if you don't want to get diabetes, if you want to be a grandparent who can actually play with their grandchildren
and pick up their grandchildren,
exactly. And I mean, I'm not talking. I mean, you can have a conversation about what this will do to your body and how you look and whatever. We can talk about that, but really, for me, I'm in it for like, what's going to help me be the best mom? What's going to help me be the best, employee, the best, member of this community?
To pick up your grandkids.
Yeah, and thinking long term. And I would argue post millennially, like, how are you even going to be alive? And I mean, American healthcare is really good at keeping you alive, but not in a healthy, thriving way at all. And I mean, I don't want that. And
that ties in the industrial medical complex and how they treat the symptom and not the root of the issue.
Yeah, they just give you we got a drug for that. And then you're a lifelong, customer. And not only are you a lifelong customer, but it's not like you're living a high quality life. Yeah. You can't go on a hike. You can't go for, you know what I mean? Like, it's not very good. I mean, a lot of the time. So all that to say,
I don't want to go on a hike though.
I know Gabe hates hiking. That was a bad example.
Hiking.
Okay, fine.
And camping.
Okay,
because,
go snowmobiling.
Like, I don't want to insult my forefathers.
Oh my gosh, they makes that joke every time.
They fought and died so I could have a mattress. And so if I went out and camped like they'd had to,
I don't think that's why they fought.
Would be insulted and dishonored.
I don't think they fought. That's camping.
That's how it works. Yep. Got the studio laughing on that one.
The audience knows that I'm right about this.
So,
but anyways, I think it depends on the person. I think it depends on the person, and some people can handle feasting more than others, and it's kind of up to you if you want to take care of your body and you want to feel better.
What I want to go back to something, and we'll go forward. You talked about seed oils, kind of the industrialization of food. We had the big, canning growth of canning food in the 30s, 40s, 50s. You have big farming kind of come in, and food in America has exploded. In fact, we feed a lot of the world. I should have looked up the stats before I got on the show, but a lot of our food goes out. And so not only can we feed our own selves in America, which is 300 million people, but then we have more than enough food to kick out to other countries.
Yep.
So in some sense, the industrialization has been good. Because we figured out farming in a way that no other generation before us has been able to produce the way we've been able to. But also part of the problem is we've also kind of manipulated, re-engineered. Everything is more about output than about quality.
100%. Yeah, it's a really good way that's exactly right. And you're right. It is kind of a double-edged sword. We're able to mass produce now. thanks to, genetically modifying things, thanks to even the glyphosate, the special kinds of glyphosate, which is basically Roundup, were, designed to kill every single thing except for that particular plant. But it is the price you pay there is that these sorts of crops in a lot of ways wreak havoc on our health, both for some people acutely in the short term. And then I would argue for most people, unless you're just genetically really lucky, in the long term. And this is why I would say you're seeing an increase in obesity, heart disease, diabetes, not just in America, but in a lot of countries. And you can really correlate, they all correlate pretty dang well, So, I mean, is it better to survive, with some lesser health outcomes than not eat at all? Probably, So I would never argue like, let's let people starve. I think there's a lot of good conversations that need to be had there. I think that if, and it's so hard. It's almost like talking about the public school system and like, it's like, where do you even start? Like, do you just shut them all down? Like, probably not. But like, where do you even start? But I think if we could get back to a place slowly where there's a way more emphasis on smaller farms and people actually learning to grow either themselves or work as small communities to grow and raise their own food. And maybe the government could consider not subsidizing only just the
big farms.
Exactly. And the stuff that's the worst for our health. There's a lot of things that I think could and should change. Yeah. But I agree with you that, there's a lot to talk about there.
With the industrialization of farming, we've been able to bring food costs down and help, even poorer countries who can't produce as much food as they need for themselves. But we've also messed with the quality of the food in such a way here in America where it's, think about it. Back in, I don't know, I was born in 1979, but I had no friends in the 80s who had an allergy.
I know.
0 friends.
This is just one of many things.
Yep. And of course, some people might make the correlation between vaccination programs. Some people might make the correlation between genetically modified, corn or whatever. But whatever's happened in the last, let's say, 40 years, because I'm way older than you, and whatever's happened in the last 40 years, like something's not right.
You're right.
Allergies are massively up.
Allergies, autoimmune issues, Hashimoto's in particular. You're absolutely right. And again, all the big ones, heart disease going up, diabetes is going up, obesity is going up, obesity in children. We're seeing now to the point that they're actually suggesting, 60 Minutes just recently did a whole thing on this.
So that's fake news.
Well, it is. And they're sponsored by all these
big pharma and everything.
They say 100% are, and like you can look it up. But I've seen it on. Yeah, but their solution now is to actually give kids weekly injectables.
Shut up.
Yeah, no. It's crazy.
That's a big pharma solution right there.
It's a big pharma problem, like in a big food problem, and then a big pharma solution, and they're all in bed together. So no, something's really, really wrong. And I really would say a lot of this does correlate to, again, creating fear of healthy saturated fat, because that's the kind of fat that's in real food, eggs, meat, like creating fear around that, which they very successfully did. Really, really pushing the super, super highly processed grains as a huge part of our diet. And again, I keep saying it, but I think it's that big of a deal. Just the prevalence of the industrial seed oils. And I think you can really, really connect those to just everybody's health just tanking over the last several decades, which it truly has. And like you even just said, I think you did in your intro, this is like for our generation is, I think, the first one in a long time where life expectancy is actually going down.
Yeah.
Which is crazy given just the money we have, the medical research that we do, it's just crazy. So, I just, don't listen to the government.
Yeah. Well, that's where
listen to them.
That's where I woke up during the medical industrial complex during COVID.
Yeah. And that was true for me in a lot of ways. I already knew some of this stuff, but it was like a whole next level.
It's like all the doctors immediately, like when Fauci shuts out, when Fauci says everyone wear a mask, all the doctors are like, oh yeah, no, we probably should,
There was an amazing
and it's like there's 30 years of studies where it's like, no, this doesn't work for, I even had a, there's 30 years, let me say this first and then I'll get there. There's 30 years of literature saying that masking don't work for the general public. And then I even very recently, you were close to the conversation. I had a conversation with a doctor who said, no, masking works for the individual. It just doesn't really work for the greater population.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, I mean, and you have to remember that people, doctors wear medical masks for a lot of reasons, like blood splattering, vomit. I mean, things that are bigger that might work very nicely to keep those sorts of things, to help keep the surgical field clean. So there is a place, I think,
sure,
for N95 surgical masks and stuff. But certainly, I think it has been exhaustively found to be true that they don't work in the general public.
Right. And the point really here of this conversation is like we're living in this world where our medical industrial Christian doctors are just believing everything they said they were told, believing all the studies they were told, never challenging them, never testing them, never. I remember me and you talked to our friends. We had some friends down in Texas. We were talking to them when they first had their when they were pregnant. They were trying to find a doctor. And they went to 3 different doctors, and asked them questions. What kind of doctor are you? Asked them. And one of the questions they asked the same 3 doctors was, "What do you think about vaccinating kids?" And this is back in early 2000s, I think, when their kids were born. And all 3 doctors gave them the same answer and referenced the same study.
Right. It was like verbatim.
Almost verbatim.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, and they're all different doctors throughout Dallas-Fort Worth area. They weren't close,
I know.
And so you have this medical, and this is going to get back to the health industry, you have this medical industrial complex where people are just not testing, not just automatically believing, and the information's coming from a godless government and coming from a godless institutional medical college system, and we aren't testing it. And so now take this back to the health industry. That's largely what's been happening in this kind of industrial health industry complex. Is we've believed a lot of the studies that's been given to us. We've believed that big pharma, there's
it works.
FARMA and PHARMA, and we've believed the industrial culture and narrative of what they've kind of passed down to us. I remember asking about the food paradigm.
The pyramid?
The pyramid. See, paradigm. It's also a paradigm.
It's a food compass now. They came out with a new one.
Okay, because you said that the pyramid should basically be inverted upside down.
In my opinion, you just flip it upside down. That's what I mean by every day is opposite day. Yeah. Because they got all the like animal products way at the tippy top. Just flipper. And then maybe you're okay. It's just whatever they tell you to do the opposite.
Because I think that food pyramid scheme, whatever you want to call it, my mom was a big cereal box buyer.
Well, so was mine. They all were. And they were honestly, so was mine. And I mean, they really thought they were doing.
And I like a good Fruity Pebbles. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
I know. That's a generation of like cereal. And
I'll still do it. But like, I mean, I don't even have cereal hardly at all anymore. But I just remember that generation cereal. And everyone thought it was healthy. You get the Special K or you get the Wheaties.
Yeah. Shredded
Wheaties was healthy. Shredded wheat.
Shredded wheat. Yeah.
100%.
And actually, they just did come out with a new, they're calling it the Food Compass, I believe. So it's basically just like a new and improved food guide pyramid. And I mean, but what they did on it, and this just outraged a lot of people. This just happened recently. It outraged a lot of people in the health space where they ranked foods basically healthier to less healthy. And they literally
like on a woke scale.
I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's real bad. And they had like
some sort of intersectionality woke.
Like Honey Nut Cheerios, way healthier than eggs.
What?
Other cereals, way healthier than like beef. No, it's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
It's crazy. And you just have to look at that and be like, who paid for this to happen? Like, I mean, there's like, it's insanity. Like like anybody with any like lick of common sense is like, okay,
wow.
Even I know that's not true, but I mean, this is the kind of, and they turned it out as like, this is the official advice that we're giving you guys. The more cereal, the better. And, stay away from eggs. It's crazy.
And so it's, I think I remember, so my dad got diabetes when he was about 34, 35. His dad had it. It seems to be, there might be an element of maybe some familial leanings in that way. But I remember, and of course I was young when all this happened, so I don't remember all the details that well, but I remember immediately them putting him on insulin. Immediately, medication. And then as he would go to the doctor and get his update checks and all that stuff, their solution was always medication. Always. I don't remember tons of conversation about diet until as he got older and his diabetes got worse. That's where the dieting conversation started coming in. You know, my brother, he has high blood sugar or high blood pressure, and their solution is to throw medication at him immediately. And it's like, okay, you're addressing the symptom to that medication.
Right.
And instead of getting to the root of the problem, and which a lot of and this is where the medical industrial complex is just so wicked in this whole process. I don't know. I'm kind of going on, but
you're
what are
bringing
your
up
thoughts?
really good points. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and I deal with that frustration with the clients that I work with pretty much every day. That it's a system of, just drugs and what drugs work for, kind of Band-Aid wise on what problems. But I will say this, I think most. I mean, I feel like I bag on doctors sometimes, but I mean, I think most doctor, like the, kind of doctor that's just like in your hometown. I mean, like they're not trying to hurt you.
No,
like
but again, they've believed the medical industrial complex. They haven't challenged it. They haven't studied it.
Right.
They're just receiving what they've been given. And we need one way our Reformation revival happens in culture is like, we got to just change the way we gather information, believe it, and disseminate it.
There needs to be way more skepticism. I think it's hard. I think it's hard when you throw, years and years and years of your life into, residency and clinicals and all that. You go through all this, grueling education, and you're taught
all government driven.
It totally is, but you're taught it, and you're like, well, it should be true, and then you get into practice and you start practicing. Like, and another thing you got to remember is that I would say, gosh, what did I read a statistic. It was like, was it 40% of med schools don't even teach, they don't even require a nutrition class? It was some kind of astounding. They get very little nutrition, zero to very little nutritional training. They should. I mean, food should be, and diet should be maybe the majority of what they're learning, but that's just not what they're trained in. And a lot of what they're training is in pharmacology. So that's what they're going to go do.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I will also say,
pharmacology, drugs, basically.
Exactly. I mean, that's what a lot of their training is. So I can't really blame them. I think we have issues from the ground up. I mean, the schools need to change. They need to stop taking money from big pharma or these bought off research institutions. But these schools need money too. They need grants. They need all these things. So it's just a big tangled mess. But I agree. I mean, if COVID didn't cause people in the medical industry to become far more critical of their own education, their own governing bodies than like
the gatekeepers.
I don't exactly. I don't know what will, and there really does need to be a healthy dose of skepticism.
Well, and this is, I don't want to talk about this, but this is like one of the reasons. Like, we need to start our own medical schools, our own health and fitness schools, our own hospitals. Is like we got to like undo all this in significant ways. The only way to undo that is you got to do it yourself. You can't depend on the government to do that. So, but here's we got about 8 minutes left here, and I want to spend the last, besides being a mother and raising our kids, you do consulting and do health and fitness consulting. And where do you start? A mom comes to you, 42 years old, done having kids, and overweight, never really exercised in her life, doesn't feel well, doesn't sleep well, whatever, scenario kind of, there's a confluence of things kind of that have all surrounded her because she's been taking care of kids, focusing on making babies. And then now she's in a spot where her kids are older and she can maybe make some adjustments in her life. Where do you start with a woman like that? Yeah,
that's a really good question. And that is actually like the majority of the women that I talk to, is they're in that place. Usually overweight or weight loss resistant, feel terrible, energy's low, headaches, hair's falling out, can't sleep, all these things. It's rarely like, please help me look good in a bikini. It's usually like, I feel awful, and I felt this way for a long time. And here's the fun part. A lot of times they've gone to their doctor over and over again for their annual whatever. And their doctor is just like, well, your blood work looks fine, and it's just part of getting older. I mean, that's the line that they're fed, regardless of how terrible they look. And don't even get me started on how people read blood work. That's a whole other conversation for another time. And so, it's a huge problem. It is for men too, but I work with a lot of women, and women, we're a little more sensitive to stress and stressors, and we're a little more hormonally complicated. So there's just a lot, I think, a little more potential for problems. And women are also very, very good at feeling like garbage and just sort of pushing through life anyways. And just sort of kind of like you're boiling a frog in water. You know what I mean? Like where you're just kind of like, well, I guess this is just how I feel. Like, I don't remember feeling any different. This is just how it is. I just thought this was how it was. And then we're fed that line from our doctors, and so you just end up buying it. But anyways, I really have learned to take a very comprehensive look at people's lives. I used to just be like, well, here's a good exercise plan for you. Here's some diet tips, and then like, go, good luck. And I mean, that would work for some, but not for a lot. Now I look at everything, how, what kind of stresses are in their lives, how they're sleeping. That's a huge one. And then I definitely always look at nutrition first. And I find that nutrition is just super, super powerful, either for good or for evil. I kind of wish it wasn't true. I mean, I'm a personal trainer at heart. I love exercise. Like, I wish you could just eat whatever you wanted and it didn't matter and you just go for a run and it's fine. And I mean, when you're really young, sometimes you can sort of get away with that. I mean, you're not really getting away with it. You're kind of getting away despite it, but it seems like it's working when you're young. But everybody hits 30-ish. And it stops working. Like, either you gain a lot of weight or you start to have health problems, or, your doctor tells you you're pre-diabetic. Something happens.
When you're 25, you can eat almost whatever you want and exercise a little,
A lot of the time you can get away with a lot. You can get away with a lot when you're younger. I still don't recommend it because I still think you're hurting your health long term and you're setting up habits that are very hard to break. But you can get away with a lot when you're younger, but not as much as you get older. So I look at nutrition immediately. And a lot of times with these women, exercise is awesome. And I recommend, especially strength training, I recommend all women do it. I think they all should be doing it eventually. But a lot of times if you're sick, if your blood sugar is all over the map, if your adrenals are highly dysfunctional, if you're severely hypothyroid, and these are all very, very common. A lot of times women, it's the case when they just don't know it. You're not in a position to add one more. It's not smart to add one more stressor into your life. So beyond just like walking at the start, I usually just address sleep, stressors, and food. And you can turn things around big time with food. I have seen if you simply just say, hey, listen, I want you to slowly cut processed food out of your life. And I want you to start eating this many grams of protein every day. I have seen women's autoimmune issues completely disappear. I've seen their hair start growing again. I've seen them start to be able to sleep at night. Migraine disorders go away. Like, it's so powerful. And that's simply just, hey, replace this food with this food. It can be a challenge because processed food is not just everywhere, but it's highly addictive. It's highly addictive. And that's by design. It's
Love me a good McDonald's.
I mean, who doesn't? And that's, what's that? Is it Pringles? It's like, or Doritos? It's like, I bet you can't just eat one. They mean that. Like, and they've got scientists.
Especially the ranch Doritos.
See? Yeah, he knows. That's why I don't buy it very much. And that's why that whole concept of like, I know I'm kind of, I'm going all over here, but it's worth saying that whole concept of like, hey, just eat all this stuff, just be moderate, is a bad plan for most people because these foods are designed for you to not be able to moderate. It's just by design. And you've seen it. Like, and you even see
they got MSGs in them. They got all these.
Oh yeah, all kinds of things. They call it a bliss point. And all these scientists, they're paid a lot of money to create foods that have the highest bliss point possible. And you're talking like big dopamine hit, like cocaine level hits with these foods. And so and I actually think it's helpful to know that because a lot of women will come to me and they're like, I just can't stop eating this stuff and I don't know why. And it's like, well, it's because it's addictive. I mean, if you're an alcoholic, you get to go to rehab. And, and no one says, hey, just keep drinking, just drink a little less. It's like, you got to stop at least for a while to get your brain unaddicted to this stuff, and it is very highly addictive. So anyways, all that to say, we look at food. There's so many things. Some women are just, the issue is that they've been undereating. They've just chronically dieted, I mean, the 90s, man, that was a big diet, hard diet, time. And so a lot of women.
And the shakes and the.
Or just like the Oprah Winfrey, it's like just cayenne and lemon water for 5 days. And you
flush your system out.
The body of your life. I mean, one way or another, a lot of these women's metabolisms are just shot. So you actually have to work at getting them to eat more. And like I said, healing their body, So anyways, nutrition, stress and sleep are the big three. There's a lot to be said there. There's a lot to look at there, but a lot of this is free and not that complicated. And there's no drug for it and you can't monetize it. And I think that's why the government's never going to tell you to do that. And then exercise should come later. Exercise should come later. Yeah. So.
Wow. I just want to finish here. Got about 2 minutes left. How do you, one of the things I've appreciated about you and kind of your advice towards women is generally that you work with them, you help them kind of, maybe flip their pyramid in their life in some sense, right?
Hashtag,
flip your pyramid. And, but at the same time, and this is something that we've kind of practiced in our family life, is that kind of like on Sabbath, we don't really monitor. We don't really think about it. We feast, you know, so it's like, work hard Monday through Saturday and then, take a day off, and that can include your diet too. And it also, I think, gives you a better sense of what you're doing in your diet instead of constantly guilt tripping yourself. And you're like, no, I'm working hard here, and then I'm going to take the day off, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's so much there. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it, but, and I mean, in the health space, you hear words like, okay, well, it's not healthy to deprive yourself because then you'll just binge later. They'll talk about it that way, or they'll say, okay, well, you don't want to have an unhealthy relationship with food. And I mean, I do agree with that, but those are the kinds of more secular ways you'll hear about it. You'll hear people talk about it, and there's truth to it. But I think it's funny because I think a lot of people who are kind of more just secular, they're not looking at health and nutrition through a Christian lens. They're still stumbling to the same conclusion because I think it's just built into us that we need to fast sometimes. And then we need to feast. And I even have found there's one guy who's pretty big name, Dr. Stephen Gundry. It's really funny. He's real big in the intermittent fasting space. He's done a lot of good work. He's helped a lot of people, but even he never mentions the Bible. I don't think he's coming from a biblical standpoint, but even he has all of his people do their intermittent fasting throughout the week, and he has them take the weekend off. And he does it simply because he's found that they're more successful that way. Yeah. They actually have more success because they get that break, they get that feast, they get that Sabbath. That's what I call it. So I just think it's really funny that I think we're made in God's image, whether people decide to recognize it or not. And we all need I mean, as most Americans, we probably could all err on the side of fasting a little more. And when I say fasting, you could actually fast, or you could just maybe stop eating Doritos all the time.
Yeah. Fasting from one specific thing or
maybe
whatever.
Fast from the ice cream a little bit. You know, if you're unhealthy or you need it's hard. I know. Maybe don't have that every day. But then we also do just as importantly need to feast. And I think that's spiritually true. I think it's mentally and emotionally true. And even physiologically, it's true. Because if you restrict too long, that sends signals to your body that you are in a time of famine, that you're in a time of stress, and that's when thyroids tank, that's when hair starts to fall out, that's when metabolism's downregulated. Right. So really, for all the reasons that I just mentioned, you really do need to incorporate some feasting. And then how often you do it really depends on what your goals are, where you're at, if you're already healthy, or if you need to heal. If you're in a place where you really do need to make some strides in your health, you're going to need to feast a little less. But I still think you need to do it. And it just depends on the person.
That's really, really good, babe. Thank you so much for coming on my show. You're
welcome.
We've never done this before, and
I've never done a show before.
I like doing a show with you.
I like it.
We should. You do. Thank you. Yeah. We should do this more often. Maybe next time with wine or something. Yeah. Be good.
I would do that.
I do want to finish here. I think one of the tensions here is that we stop giving thanks for food. That was our text in First Timothy. We need to receive everything from the Lord. 1 Timothy chapter 4, receive our food from God, and give thanks for it, and put food in the right category in your life, as opposed to some sort of idolatrous place or health. And of course, we talked more about food than actual exercise here and health. But like all that, the health, the fitness, the working out, the body image, the desire for all this self-help stuff that comes in, that's all idolatry, and it's wrapped up in. And if one of the ways if someone came to me and started dealing with this problem, I'd first start maybe giving thanks. So you guys is my room next door? We're getting ready. Okay, thanks. Is first actually start giving thanks for the food in front of you, and not just some passive prayer that you genuinely give thanks for it, and start with getting your attitude right with the Lord on what's going on in your life. Yeah. So give thanks for it. Yeah. And then you have this, don't fall into like this guilt trip mentality with your food, with your exercise, but do it all out of thanksgiving and all out of gratefulness to God. Yes. When you're working out for self body image, you're turning that into an idol, as opposed to working out, eating food in the right way, creating the right diets, and you're giving thanks in such a way where that's what God has called you to do. You're actually starting with obedience. You want to start with obedience in all this, and not start with some sort of physical external fix. Obviously a lot of spiritual problems have come, half the time you're some sort of spiritual counselor, and then you get into food, and then you get into sleep, and then you get into
very connected.
It's very connected. And all this. So start with giving thanks to God and all this, and then find someone like my wife, someone in your community that you can trust, that can help you kind of sort through maybe some practical solutions that you can start implementing in your life and all this stuff. So any closing thoughts, baby?
No, I mean, I think that's a really good thought. And that I've been just doing this for so long, and I will say that vanity alone, which really just the only motivator behind that is just going to be your willpower. It not only is that, arguably not a great reason to be pursuing your health and fitness, but also it just doesn't really work. I mean, some people who are they're just willing to really white knuckle it and just starve themselves and be like, I won't eat the Pop-Tarts, I will run farther. I mean, they'll last maybe a little longer than someone else, but it never really works long term. And I think, so you really need a better reason, a bigger reason, arguably one that's, seen through the lens of, how God created us and what God has put us on this earth to do.
And your family life and who you are as a husband and wife.
And where it will actually, you putting good nourishing food in your body is going to allow you to take better care and better affect and impact the people around you. That's a far better motivator and a more long lasting, sustainable motivator. And just a better reason, I would say, to just take care of your body. So I think that's really great. And I love the idea of looking at food, even if you do need to make some swaps and make some changes, a lot of us do, and that's fine. But whatever you land on, just look at it as a positive thing, like something that you're thankful to God for, because it's gonna serve your body, it's gonna nourish your body, and allow your body to do all the amazing things that God has designed it to do, as opposed to like the enemy or something that something that you're kind of
fighting against.
You're working against, exactly. No, I think you're right. I think the mindset is a big deal.
Yep. Thank you, baby. Thanks for coming on. Well,
this is great.
I hope this show was helpful. Maybe there's a lot more in this conversation. Me and Annie have actually had this for years, and there's a lot more in this conversation. But I hope it's helpful to you guys. And so, this is the Water Break with Waterboy. So until next time, go fight, laugh, and feast.
It is the duty of the free man to resist tyranny at every turn. Every man will either watch his freedom stripped away or take action to protect what he loves. Introducing the A3, the newest revolutionary body armor from Armored Republic. The A3 is the new standard for lightweight multi-hit body armor. A3 plates are incredibly light at 4.6 pounds. The patented design captures fragmentation while remaining multi-hit capable. The A3 will stop up to M80 ball, yet comes in at only 0.7 inches thick. The A3 is the thinnest NIJ .06 compliant or certified composite standalone plate that includes the drop test. The A3 is the first of its kind, patent pending, that combines an alloy strike face with polyethylene backing, revolutionizing body armor technology by providing strength and durability while remaining sleek and maneuverable. The A3 is the new standard in lightweight body armor. The fight against tyranny just got stronger.